No, uh, no opinion on that. So we could just popcorn questions. Why don't we
Yeah,
just do that and keep it casual? Great
that
idea.
sounds good.
So
So raise your hand or put something in the chat if you have a question.
great. Yeah, and then so like I said, won't save Q&A for the meeting. Just go ahead and ask your questions throughout the hour. But we just wanted to put a little a sentence in here. So about how DEC and SWMEs can work together with business outreach. Obviously, the solid waste management entities have goals for business outreach, and the DEC has goals as well. And so we can coordinate on outreach days going out into your region, meeting businesses by doing either cold calls or planning visits in advance with the business. And, with the SWME, we can talk about who would contact the business. Um, and then, we can certainly assist with compliance and sharing resources. Um, Specifically, one thing that we wanted to point out is the DEC has access to interpretation services. And so if you ever need to engage with a business that there may be a language barrier, we can coordinate being in person and having an interpreter on the phone. And we also have some outreach material in different languages as well. And so, last year sort of went into different resources that we have in more detail. We're not going to really do that today, but know that on the DEC website, we do have the solid waste management entity resources page. It's now been separated from the planning page into its own little thing where we have all of our um, business outreach specific links to things. And then on our downloads page, we also have all of the translations that we have available for materials. But just diving into a little bit what is expected for SWMEs in the next 5 years. And so this language is from the 2024 Material Management Plan. Um, and so to ensure that businesses and institutions that they understand the law, disposal bans, have an opportunity to discuss how to reduce waste, reuse, recycle, donate. Literally just this is all, like I said, it's actually a picture from the MMP word for word. The requirement for your next SWIP coming up, as you're all probably aware, since you've been working with your templates, yes, for this next coming year, thank you. We are in a transition, right? So for 20, no, for this year, it's 20 businesses that you'll need to do. For the next 5 years, 2026 on into the end of the next SWIP, it will be 15 businesses or 2%. Sorry, I'm just gonna move my cat. And so we have resources to help SWMEs estimate the number of businesses in their region. The Department of Labor offers tools that, one tool that they offer just provides like the number of private businesses in a town or multiple towns that you select. Um, and then there is another tool that actually has some information, some contact information about businesses. However, I'm not sure how accurate that is. But if you ever want assistance estimating the number of businesses that you have in your SWME and those tools, maybe aren't working for you, we can certainly help get you that number. But I think for all the SWMEs, you should be aware if you're at that 2% or 20 for this year, 15 businesses for next. And, business outreach at minimum needs to cover, as I mentioned, the universal recycling law, disposal ban, informations, how to recycle, separate food scraps, um, how to reduce waste and donate when appropriate. We certainly do have documents for food donations specific. And then in addition, single-use products law, um, the information about managing hazardous waste safely, may depend on what business you're working with. Some businesses generate, like I just did a visit with Killington Resort. They're a small quantity generator. They work with the hazardous waste program. And so I didn't actually talk to them too much about, safe management of their hazardous waste because they are a hazardous waste generator and stuff. And so we talked a little bit about cleaning products together and things like that. But for them, at least, some of the larger generators are already working with the hazardous waste program to properly manage their hazardous waste. And of course, you want to touch upon collection options for the electronics, paint, batteries, and all the mercury products. And then also, on the website, we have a downloadable Excel spreadsheet that you can document all these conversations you have just by making little notes. We tried, well, I wasn't here when we made it, but I would like to think tried to make it relatively easy to fill out. And then certainly when we are reviewing SWIP reports every year, just being able to glance through and see all the columns. I know it helps me digest the information too. Um, but ultimately, a successful business outreach visit is one where you're able to exchange some information and you can learn from them if they are recycling and composting so that you can learn, the status of their recycling and food scrap diversion plans. Um, good food scraps and coffee grounds. Pam, what do you mean?
So
Sorry.
I'm just looking at the spreadsheet, and one of the categories says food scraps and coffee grounds. Is there a specific reason that you want to know about coffee grounds and it's just not included in food scraps?
So I think that it definitely is included in food scraps. I think we highlighted it more as a reminder to talk about it because it's something that a lot of businesses, like especially at gas stations, they don't realize that coffee grounds are included with food scraps. So it's just
Okay.
a reminder to mention it because if you
Okay.
just talk about food scraps, they might not be thinking coffee.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Mhm. And then we
Oh,
also
Sharon has a question, I think,
oh,
Shannon.
oh,
Oh
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Where is that nifty spreadsheet?
It is
I can throw
on,
it, I can put the link in the chat.
Thank you.
yeah, could you do the planning page? Because this is just a download one. And so it's like you do when you click it, it will just like download.
Okay.
Um, and so yeah, you just have to go to the regular web page. And then we do also have a business outreach script, which obviously you do not need to use, but it can just give you some suggestions of how the conversation can flow, of just how obviously go through introducing yourself, talk about the state laws. Oh, yeah, Pam, not, oh, because that's what I was like, good
Or I'm like,
scraps.
well, yeah, they're all good scraps. Sorry.
Yes, very true. They are all good scraps. Um, And so, I think this script is really just helpful to emphasize um, that, when we're going out into the community and we're doing business outreach, there are really, there's some things to consider with effective communication. I just found this, catchy, the seven C's. Um, but it is true that, being representatives of your solid waste management entities and, you know, being a public servant, that you are, playing a role where you're trying to, offer a service and be as transparent as possible and build a relationship ultimately to promote compliance. And then we all recognize how difficult that is. Um, but at least on your end, like you can always work on these skills. You may not, like, it might still be really difficult to get compliance from businesses, but just trying to be as clear as possible and concise, always reminding businesses that, this goes back to the law. And of course, you can get support in that conversation of like, this isn't just you going into businesses because you're interested in this. It is, based in state law, which again, that helps you sound concrete in your messaging. Um, sounding coherent. I don't know how to help you do that. I'm kidding. I'm sorry. Like, but of course, you do want to be courteous. And it says 6 and then 6. So this is just maybe wrong altogether. I don't know. But this is really just here as a consideration of um, effective leadership communication skills and just, you know, trying to promote something where people trust the messenger as much as possible and leading into it with them knowing that you're a resource. Andy, yes.
Yeah, I mean, one question I've always had going into business outreach is identifying yourself some way with your SWME, right? With the solid waste district. And so like I know Chittenden Solid Waste District, they have logoed stuff. Central Vermont has logoed stuff. I mean, what are your thoughts on, wearing something that identifies you as, representative of your solid waste district?
You want to know my true thoughts? As someone who was not from Vermont and moved into Vermont, just look like you typically do. Having a name tag would be great, but I think unless your district actually has like a shirt that you can wear, like I would certainly go out in my NEK shirt, or in the winter I had a Carhartt if they provide you with something, or if you feel like a name tag might help. But I certainly, I feel like what you're wearing, I can't see your pants, but just your typical clothing, that's something that makes you seem approachable, like you can have a conversation with, because that's ultimately the goal. Um, and I feel like I've heard this feedback from like other Vermonters. Like someone once said to me, like, you don't want to go to like a meeting with a bunch of farmers in like a suit and tie. And this is just to a room of people. And so
Yeah.
obviously I won't be wearing a suit and tie maybe. But that really put it into consideration, like, oh, you know, Vermont is a unique place and there's maybe a little less stress on that. That's how I always felt. And so, unless you want to tell Tom, like, hey, get me some printed stuff so I can have a Greater Upper Valley slash Southern Windsor Wyndham. That acronym is one of the longer ones. That's just my suggestion if anyone has anything else to add.
I think that's accurate, really accurate. More personable, the better.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah. And so, I just also put in here that there are other benefits that, you can discuss, in this trying to round out your communication, not just have it be all based in the law. Certainly there all are possible cost savings. I know sometimes it can be difficult to talk about cost savings with a business, but having a discussion about right sizing containers, waste reduction, purchasing different types of products for food service, certainly could lead to cost savings. And then there's certainly, increased customer and employee satisfaction. I think we all know that there's a general trend in society, not just in Vermont. I think it's going beyond it now, that people want to see more sustainable choices from businesses. Mhm. So sorry for all this text, but really quickly, I think we all can recognize that what is expected from businesses, businesses, they generate waste. And so according to the law, they need to separate that food waste and the recycling from the trash. In order to do so, that means that they should train staff, um, and really for food scraps, um, and this will, I don't want to spend too much time in this conversation because we're going through like the rule making of, this conversation, I guess, but prioritizing the food scrap hierarchy, ultimately reducing food waste and donating. It is best when businesses at least can say, yes, I have a program that we donate. It might be once a week when the local volunteers can come and pick it up, but ultimately any measures of food donation are great because there are often restrictions, that businesses have with getting the food to where it could go. Feeding animals, of course, following the Agency of Agriculture guidelines, and then hopefully compost is and anaerobically digesting is the last option that, for the food scraps. Um, and, we recognize that generators, even when they have a compost system in place, like you can imagine with a restaurant, there may be some food waste that ends up in the trash. Ultimately, the goal is that employees are trained and that when they see food ending up in the trash, they take that opportunity for retraining employees. Um, at restaurants, every bus station should have a compost tote next to the trash, to make it easy for employees to be able to compost. That may not happen all across the board and but ultimately it should be a system that truly works. And then, what happens if a business is out of compliance? That's where DEC can assist and really, we need your help as SWMEs who are out in your communities and gathering this information to let us know, what you feel like your priorities are for business compliance. Certainly it's a priority of ours. And so, um, but with the information, we get information that's submitted through a complaint form on the DEC, which certainly I've gotten my fair share of, but we want that feedback from the SWMEs as well. But and when we do receive a complaint, oh, Gabriella, yes.
No, I think you were just about to answer my question, so I'll leave it for a second.
Oh. Yeah, so when we do receive a complaint, like I mentioned, when a Vermonter or, maybe even not a Vermonter, like submit something saying, this business is not recycling or composting, the first thing that we do is an outreach visit, typically. The goal is a visit. We do phone calls as well, but at least for the ones that I've done recently, I've been making the point to try to visit them all, so that we can meet with an owner or manager and try to assess the validity of the complaint. What is their status of diversion for recycling and composting? If there is a violation, ultimately just like yourselves, like voluntary compliance is the goal. We're hoping that with the information, with the resources, that the businesses will take the steps to become in compliance with the law. So I have examples of a letter that we send in the next few slides. But if there is still a violation after we try to get voluntary compliance, that's where we have a tracking system called Bear, where we put all the data in. We inform, our enforcement team that's led by Barb Schwettener, and, potentially get the ball rolling on enforcement with sending out a notice of alleged violation or NOAV. And so in the letters that, DEC, our team sends, this is an example of one that I sent to a Dunkin' Donuts in the White River Junction area. We received a complaint that they were using plastic straws, which we'll talk about in a little bit because there are some nuances with the plastic straw, um, giving them out or just providing them, for people to take on their own. But, as you can see here, I tried to color code how, the important information that we put in a follow-up letter. And so we detail either the complaint or the violation that we witnessed, and the location, the date that we saw it. We provide links to the statute or really the website pages that also have links to the statutes and, the resources that we have available, the FAQs and the documents that basically say, here's all the stuff that needs to be kept out of the trash. Then we ask for a detailed response within a timeline, typically 60 days. We ask them to demonstrate compliance by sending a picture of their food scrap in, sending a picture of a contract with the hauler, as you can see here, an invoice of paper straws or, sorry, straws provided by request. You'll see that in a second. And then contact information to reach back out both to whichever one of us sent it and then the local solid waste district. We do try to remember to like CC you guys on this. I'm trying to remember to CC Mr. Gasta from Hartford on this. But as you can see here, the company did send documentation of the sign that they put up about straws and people needing to request straws on their own by request from the customer, the food scrap tote, and the service agreements for all of the locations since they had 7. I was like, I don't really need pictures for all 7. I'm not going to be able to tell which location is which. And so that's how I got all the location for the franchise. And this is, one of our examples of successful compliance, but I have had, you know, a few others that have been successful just with this voluntary compliance. Yes, Sharon. I'm sorry, I don't want to say
Hi.
your name wrong.
Yeah, I haven't actually done the outreach for a number of years. Back when I was, I think the last time I did it, it was either in MRRMA or it was for the town of Hartford. So it's been 10 years, and I remember might have included that Dunkin' Donuts that they didn't even have a recycling dumpster. And so I was getting in touch with the state about a couple hotels and Dunkin' Donuts that didn't even have a recycling dumpster. They just had a refuse dumpster from Casella or Myers or whoever it was. What I don't know. My question is, how often is that the case now? And when it does happen, how are we holding the haulers accountable? Because a business may not know, but those haulers know that if they're hauling trash, there's an obligation to provide or at least let those businesses know the law requires that they also recycle. And I always felt like the haulers were falling short if they were providing a great big dumpster for a business for trash and there was no dumpster for recyclables. Like, is there a system in place to kind of deal with that?
I sort of want to let Ann take that question up as the supervisor of the team, but I will say, the what the law states haulers must do is a little bit more limited than I think what you described. There's nothing that says that they must do outreach with their customers based off of state law. There is some language about how they can charge for the services of recycling, and that they must offer it. But I don't think it goes much beyond that. I mean, I absolutely agree with you when I go to businesses that the dumpsters say cardboard only, and they're like, it's cardboard only. And I'm like, why? You need to be recycling everything, and everything can go in there. And so that has been a thought that it's like I do want to learn a little bit more about the cardboard only. I understand it's a higher value material, but that doesn't that doesn't provide the service that the business needs. And so, Anne, yeah, I don't know if you'd like to share anything on that.
Or I
Yeah,
can jump in, or,
or
okay, go ahead.
you can jump into Alyssa if you want. I was just gonna say that while we would love it if haulers were responsible, it's not, under the law, it's not their responsibility. It is the business. Offer the recycling, but the business doesn't necessarily have to. I mean, sorry, it's the businesses that, the law says no person shall knowingly dispose of recyclables. So it really is up to the business. And so that's why, in a way, we rely on you to be our eyes and ears because we can't be everywhere. And so then we will contact the business and tell them, no, you really do have to contract with your hauler and have a recycling dumpster at your business. But it's not the hauler's responsibility. Alyssa, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so right, with haulers such as Casella or Myers, like we know that they do offer the services of recycling, but we did have an instance recently in Canaan where there was not, possibly still is not a hauler that offers recycling at all because there's only one hauler and it's a company out of New Hampshire and they do trash. And since they're having Vermont customers, they need to be able to offer recycling, and they were not. 1 second. Right. Sorry about that. And so in that instance, we worked with Barb Schwintner because her team also permits the haulers, and she reached out to that hauler and informed them that they needed to either offer recycling or cease having Vermont customers. But the challenge is in terms of the businesses is we don't regulate their prices. So they could choose to offer recycling, but at such an exorbitant rate that no businesses in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont would actually be able to take up their service. This was pretty recent, so it hasn't fully played out yet, but that did happen. So it's definitely is a challenge, but for the most part, I don't think that's happening a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, it just always occurred to me, somebody might say, "Oh, I'm going to start this business," and they know everything there is to know about baking, but they don't necessarily know everything there is to know about the universal recycling law or what the resources are there to comply with the law. And the haulers should know all of that very well.
Yeah.
Alex?
Yeah, it's tricky, right? I mean, we have so many different private companies, one big one hauling stuff, and we can't control their prices. I'm curious because I was going through the Vermont DEC resources. We all like to think that if everyone was recycling and composting, that they would save money. And some businesses, money is the only thing that speaks. But I'm wondering if anybody here has had like a positive or they know that a business has actually saved money by taking up the practices that we ask them to do. And if we have any documentation of that, that we could maybe put in like a success story. Because I haven't seen anything yet, and everybody who is doing well in my district either has a lot of community power, just like a lot of people helping out or volunteering, or, one woman's using bacon fat to make her soap, and it's a circular thing, and that's beautiful, but a lot of folks don't have that, so they're just paying extra to make it happen. So I'm wondering if
Yeah.
anybody's seeing any cost savings at all, if we can call that out. Can't recall who mentioned it previously, but I feel like someone talked about helping a business right size their trash dumpster. They had a trash dumpster that was too large. They weren't filling it. And so, these conversations, no, I don't think recycling and composting are going to lead to cost reductions. They are services provided by private companies that are going to have a cost associated with them. It's more the waste reduction portion. It's like, really being thoughtful of what your waste stream is and trying to reduce it as much as possible, which is a much larger conversation that plays into all of the logistics of the business itself, but it's still worthy of a mention. Obviously, we all know that, um, but yes, of course, we're working with a hauler. If you're not recycling and you're working with your hauler to get an additional recycling dumpster, there is going to be an increase of price. And we have no control over
Yeah,
that.
and I'll just add when we first started doing outreach, about the universal recycling law, we were really excited, and I think we did put in a lot of our materials that you could maybe save money, and we definitely have backed off from that and tried to take it out, and we definitely don't lead with that, whereas I think in the beginning we did. Because we honestly hoped and thought, but it's a really good point. If any of you know any businesses that really have saved money, let us know and we could put together a case study. Yeah, I mean, we really do hope, like Shannon said, that a lot of the cost savings will come from when they, if especially if they're a food business, like if they're tracking their food waste, then they realize ways that they can save on food ordering, and that's where the reduction comes, or the cost saving comes from.
I'm not being able to remember which business this was. Like I thought we had a testimonial. Anyway, I just can't put my finger on it, but a business, I think it was an inn that maybe had put food scraps down the drain and it ended up creating like a costly problem with their septic system. So diverting it was a cost savings for them, but they sort of had like a big learning lesson to get there. It wasn't just a regular sort of, oh, diverting saves money.
Right, not
prevented a
everybody's
disaster.
compromising their septic. It's not.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I get it, like, this stuff comes with time and it's just another layer of Vermont business. Like, yeah, this is a challenge and it costs money. And I understand the feel good stuff. That's what I push the most, but I was hoping for some economical something because yeah, I have seen that shift, Anne, where I'm like, yeah, I used to see that or hear it in meetings, and I'm like, no one's saving money. Can we just be honest?
Yeah. I think that's the unfortunate reality. So yeah, Sharon, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No.
These ideas keep coming up because I'm really gearing up to start my direct outreach to businesses, and I've been thinking a lot about it. I know that studies have shown that normalizing a certain value or behavior in a culture is pretty effective. And do you have like stats on the number of businesses that are doing it right in the state so that like when I'm talking to someone, they're like, oh, that's just kind of, I could say, well, 78% of the businesses in Vermont are making it work. And, we know you want to be on board with, that kind of thing.
We unfortunately don't have actual numbers. That would be really great if we did. I think saying most is probably fair and realistic. Because yeah, it's definitely happening. I mean, I went out to eat with my husband the other day at a random restaurant in town and spotted a food scrap tote in the parking lot, and there was only one, but I'm also, I was like, all right, I think that could make sense given where it was. So yeah, I think saying that most do is probably true. At least for like restaurants diverting. I think if you go into like I'm going to talk a little bit more about like the hospitality industry. I think most hotels probably do not have a way for guests to manage their food scraps out of the trash. So like that's a piece of culture that we're hoping to start changing. But yeah, in terms of real numbers, we definitely don't. Okay. Well, thanks, Shannon, for going over all of those nuts and bolts. Yes.
I just want to add one thing that I like to do on that score when I'm going into a community is to just make a list of maybe 4 or 5 businesses that I know are doing it so that when I get that question, Sharon, I can say like, oh, do you want to talk to this place or this place? And I try to especially have like if I'm going into a restaurant, I try to have another local restaurant or two so they can talk to a peer about how to do things instead of just with me. So we don't have that data, but you could talk to someone in your local area or you probably know yourself, who's doing it and who isn't.
Thank you. That I think is maybe even more effective than being able to throw out a statistic.
Great. So yeah, continue with these really excellent questions and thoughts. So for this second half or second portion, I'm just going to go through what some of these expectations that Shannon talked about can look like in practice. And Shannon talked about, oh yeah, I can't control the slide. So go on, I was pressing my button, didn't work. Yeah, why don't you go on to the next? Okay. Oh, I just put this one in here because we do get this question a lot, and Shannon already referred to it. But for the single-use products law, the straw portion is a little bit vague. So basically, businesses cannot automatically provide a plastic straw to their customers in the beverages, but they can have a self-service station. So this is Morse Block Deli here in Barrie. I love it because they have reusable straws and disposable straws. Would have been even better if they'd had reusable utensils, although I think I spot some knives. The wooden stirrer stick. So this was awesome. And so self-service straw stations are completely acceptable, but otherwise they can use paper straws and put them in every drink if that's what they want to do, or they could just have plastic straws and have them available. Compostable plastic straws, however, still count as plastic straws. So if they use compostable straws, they have to be a non-plastic material in order to just plop them in every single drink. Next slide. Great. So in general, we're really looking for businesses to have both of these goals. The first, that diversion options exist, is the compliance piece. That's really what Shannon was talking about, is that people who want to recycle and compost can do it. The bins are there. And so that's important, but we all know that equally important is that the system is actually effective in preventing contamination, because if the recyclables and the food scraps are so contaminated, then they're not going to be recycled or composted anyway. So it's half of it is compliance, and then our other half that we're really hoping that we achieve with this outreach is creating successful systems. So I just wanted to sort of share some examples. So yeah, Shannon talked about a system, and that's really kind of our favorite buzzword, because there's no one size fits all at all. Every business or school or entity is going to be just completely different. I mean, there'll obviously be some pieces that they all need, like the infrastructure. So indoor bins to collect the materials could be both employee facing, like if at a restaurant they needed them in the kitchen, and then also something that's customer or guest facing. And then the communication piece, so that's both having communication with their staff, so regular training and just sort of making it part of the staff culture, but then also communicating to the patrons so that the general people know how to use the system and actually make it effective. Next slide. So sort of the gold standard, of course, in terms of sort stations is a staffed sort station, and these do exist. So these pictures are both at ski resorts owned by the Vail company. So the one on the left, clearly that was taken in the off season. I think you can see paint cans because they were spiffing up the place, but that was at Stowe Mountain. And then I think the one on the right, that's the behind the scenes of that station, except it's at either Okemo or Mount Snow. I don't remember off the top of my head. But it's just really amazing that a lot of these resorts, again, particularly the Vail resorts, they are really valuing waste reduction and keeping these recyclable and organic streams clean enough to actually be composted or recycled. So they're putting their staff time and money, because they all know, just like we do, that that's the best way to guarantee really clean streams is by not having the general public do it. So it exists. On the other side of the spectrum, you can have a 3-bin system that it meets the compliance perspective. There's recycling, there's food scraps. They even worked really hard. I honestly have no idea where this is, but they have the symbols. They tried to put signs on the front. They tried to put signs up on the top. There's a lot of information on the signs, but if you're a person with a bunch of stuff and you're standing right there looking down, there's 3 identical holes. There's nothing to indicate why the middle hole is the one for trash and the other 2 are special. So my guess is if we were to peek inside those bins, the streams are probably super contaminated, and probably there's not a lot of successful recycling and composting going on with this kind of system. Next. So different colors and different shapes can really help. This happens to be just at our little break room at National Life. So sure, it's solid waste people using it anyway, but I like the fact that our little like food scrap bin in the middle, it has a lid. It's different. Like I don't think anyone's gonna toss their trash in there because you have to like really take the lid off. The trash can and the recycling bin obviously are the same shape, but they're still like very different bins. So this sort of system is definitely like a step in a better direction of having a system that could work. Next. And then similarly, having different size openings can help. So obviously both of these systems, I have no idea where these were. These are just photos in our folders. But everything's the same color. So that could be improved. And especially the one on the right, there aren't even words on the top. So that's too bad. But the openings really help steer people in the right direction. So if you just want to throw away trash, I think you're going to go to like the big wide open opening. You're not going to try to shove your trash into like a smaller tailored can and bottle sized opening. So that's just a recommendation that I think can lead to successful recycling. Next. And then on the extreme side, if you are working with a business or an event that really the primary recyclable is cans and bottles, it's totally okay to encourage them to have recycling containers like these that just have the can and bottle opening, because we really want the recyclables to be recycled. And if this is the best way to do it, then that's a lot better than just having an open blue bin that has everything, including a bunch of trash in it. So I know the two photos on the right are from the Champlain Valley Expo, and then the one on the left is next to the Stowe bike path. And that one clearly is an effort to be bear proof as well. And I would love to know how successful that is, but hopefully that's working out. I think they're both like trash on the, like you open up a little lever for trash, and then there's the can and bottle thing as well. And then smaller food scrap containers can really work very well. So kind of like the one in our office. This is from Eco Museum. So obviously the recycling and the trash can, those are identical bins. So that's probably not like super successful, but their food scrap, I did peek in there and it looked great. And I think it's because, it's a couple steps away. It's small, it has a lid, it's green. All of those cues are really helpful to the public that trash does not belong in this clearly very special different bin. And I didn't ask anyone about like how successful it is overall, so maybe that day was particularly good, but I have a feeling that it's probably working out pretty well. The recycling, however, yeah, not so much. And then at the bare minimum, we like to see signs that either like can ask people to bring their scraps or recyclables up to the front desk, like that could be acceptable, or even a pack it in, pack it out. I don't think I managed to take a picture, but I think that the Vermont Institute of Natural Science, VINS down in Queechee, they don't sell food or anything, but obviously a lot of people bring their own lunches and they have signs saying, please pack it out. And I think in that case, that's completely appropriate. It's doing a step to keep it out of the trash, but it's still saying that it's your responsibility for managing it. Next. Okay, so then for the hospitality field, this is one that we really didn't do like that big of a push on initially. There were just so many like big food scrap generators that we were focusing on. And then there was the pandemic. So more recently, we have been trying to really reach out to all of the large ski resorts throughout the state. We've reached most of them. Bolton hasn't gotten back to me yet, but I think that's like the last one that we haven't had any communication with yet. And we've also worked with the Vermont Short-Term Rental Association, but really all sorts of hospitality, like including campgrounds. We would love to have a system in place so that guests, again, can keep their recyclables and food scraps out of the trash if they want to, because we certainly recognize that this is an area where there's so many people who aren't Vermonters. They like don't know that we have laws in place. So we're never going to see perfection, but we want people who want to go the extra step to recycle and keep their food scraps out of the trash, that they can do it. So that's, yeah, with these next bits. So for food scraps, again, like there's no one way that the system could play out. So just some examples, like there could be a food scrap container in every unit that's emptied by staff, Or there could be a container in every unit and a sign that says that guests have to empty it at a central waste station. Maybe that waste station is at every floor, or maybe it's every building, or maybe it's just once in the whole facility. That could be okay. Or it could be that there's just like compostable bags in every unit and you have to bring it to a central waste station yourself. Or it could even be a sign just saying that bags are available at the front desk. That would be our least preferred option, of course. But any of these variations could technically meet compliance. That bottom picture is at Track Family Lodge, where people in the condos, yeah, they have access to these little, this was like just recycling and food scraps, and then trash was on the other side, basically like in all the parking lots. So that was great. Next. We created this guest education template, which is an editable Word document. I know we've sent it out before, so you might have looked at it. But basically, there's just really simple pictures, simple language, and then the red areas, businesses could put their own names, logos, and then their own instructions, and provide this to guests if they want to. Next. And then we also created this short-term rental waste management assessment, which is basically like a self-assessment, to sort of give yourself a score on where areas that you're doing really well and where areas that you could improve. And at the moment, we've just created this for like aimed for short-term rentals, but if this seems like it would be a useful tool, we could definitely adapt it for other types of businesses. And with that, I think that's the last slide. Yeah, so we have resources and a few minutes left if there's more questions. Andy.
Hi, yeah. One thing that I've consistently found is, as you know, in like hotels, you have the staff who are going around picking up bags of stuff that are in the rooms, and I don't think they're necessarily providing recyclable bins in every room, or even if they are, a lot of times the staff just sort of throws it all back into one bag and then it's gone. So like the bagging of recyclables is a big deal, but like training their staff on how to do it, like sometimes they're just like, we're understaffed, we can't do it, you know? So I just found it's like a little frustrating trying to get, you know, setting up a recycling system that would go through each room. I mean, they might have a centralized place, but like, you know, the cleaning out of the rooms each time, just, it's something just seems to fall away.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's such a great point. And I think, I mean, I wish that we had simple answers. I think the bagged recyclable issue can be gotten around. Like we actually had a complaint about a school that I think it was someone who worked at the school observed that like recyclables were being bagged and they thought they were being thrown out. And what it turns out was happening was that the custodians were taking the bags and sort of bringing them with the trash cans, but then emptying the bags into the recycling dumpster. And we definitely confirmed in person, like, yes, they were being recycled, even though they were bagged and carried alongside trash. So I think it like could happen that at a hotel they could like have the bag, but they would obviously have to keep them separate and then empty the bags. So it would be right more work for a clearly already like exhausting job. Yeah, anyone else have thoughts on hotel, Gabby?
To add to what I think it was Andy had mentioned, I've also noticed that in some of my interactions with hotels, a problem that I have, or a complaint rather, that I've heard is that maid carts are often not equipped to have a bag for trash and a bag for recycling and a bag for food waste, or sometimes not even a bag for trash and a bag for recycling because they have to fit laundry in there as well. I've tried doing some of my own research and I haven't found a maid cart option that would theoretically fit that need and meet the one particular hotel's aesthetic standards. But I have seen in a couple of places hotels having at least trash and recycling in the room, but then dumping it all into one bag just quite simply because they don't have a spot on the maid cart for it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It sounds like we're really in need for like a hotel bright spot of someone who's doing it really well. John, do you have that like amazing story?
I'd love to have that amazing story. Actually, I was more concerned about franchises with multiple managers for a single franchisee and how we can more effectively get the message from the franchisee out to the managers, because I think things get lost in translation. And I don't have an easy answer, but it's something that I think we all will experience at some point.
Yeah, that's such a great point as well. And I don't have an answer. I mean, it's so hard even finding like names and phone numbers. And then if you do, they don't answer the phone and you send an email and it just goes into the ether and disappears. So we have these same challenges. Yeah. Any any thoughts on that challenge or success stories?
I think it's consistency. I think you've got to keep banging on the local folks and copying the franchisee, if you will.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
it's got to be out there.
Mhm.
So,
And that's exactly why we have these requirements of all of us to just be out there consistently.
mhm.
Yeah. Well, any other last thoughts? Yeah, Gabriella.
I had a quick question about the SWIP, if that's all right, not
Of
to
course.
detract from hotels. So this was something I was confused about last year. I know that it's the amount of business outreach that is done is based on your population. However, for at least the term that we're currently in, I noticed that our business population had gone up. So I've just been operating on the assumption that I need to use whatever number is current for that year. But does it stay the same through the whole term, or is it 2% of your business population each year?
So we chose to not require that you recalculate your businesses every year. That just kind of seemed like a lot. So it's sort of up to you. And like we are not checking, yeah, we're not doing the calculations ourselves. So I guess it's more of an honor system. We make sure that the number that you state seems reasonable. But yeah, we're not actually checking it. But if you want to update it every year so that you have like, yeah, what you feel is more accurate, then 100% you can. I don't know, Anne, if Shannon, if you have more thoughts on that. We talked
Yeah.
about it definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more so, when swimmies are drafting their SWIP, if they were to estimate that they have like 100 businesses, and it's like, well, one of their towns maybe has 100 businesses, and we might see that and ask that they, do a more thoughtful estimation with the Department of Labor tools provided. But yeah, we certainly aren't more prescriptive of needing to do it on a certain timeline. It's really like just setting the expectation of how you figure out what bar to meet, and that's in my mind once every 5 years, like the SWIP. When you write the SWIP, sort of assessing like, all right, what is the number of businesses that we need to do? There will be some fluctuation where some year there's more and some year there's less, and so I guess the thought is that unless there's like extreme economic growth, which maybe hopefully there will be, who knows? I don't know, gotta cheer that on. That it will level itself out year after year if you just year one figure that out.
And the only thing I will add too is that now we finally have a full team, and so I will offer our help again. And we like to get out in the field with all of you and learn more about your regions. And so if you do have an influx of businesses and you're like, I can't get to these, let us know, especially if they're the larger food scrap generators. Those are still a priority for us. But we are definitely willing to help if you need it.
And then just sort of to end on a bright spot, we've had some, touching upon like these success stories are so great, or wouldn't it be nice if we had more success stories? And we all do know that a lot of these like success stories are out there. We just often end up working with the ones who aren't in compliance and don't feel so exciting. But this is something we've been like tossing around, just like a way of recognizing successful businesses. So maybe that's just something to sort of like think about, and maybe at an upcoming recycling coordinators meeting or just some other time we could all think about like how we could have more testimonials or more I don't know, just a way of acknowledging businesses that are doing really well. like I said, I don't know what that might look like, but I think it's something that's worth thinking about. True, we have the scrapbook, which now is really old and it's not very many businesses, but
Yeah,
we
but
have a precedent for that.
you're reminding me, so, you know, we do have this scrap food waste website and it does have some business testimonials. And some businesses might be really psyched to see their business highlighted on a website. So we do need to go through those because they are pretty old. But that's one way that we can highlight businesses. So let us know if there are other ones that we could update.
And as always, just please reach out if you do have questions or a challenging business. Always here to help. But thanks for all that you do. And yeah, if you haven't done your 2025 outreach yet, there's still several months left to do it.
Thanks, everyone. I'm gonna stop
Thank
the
you.
recording now and have a great day.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Oh,